Donna Adelson and Sarah Boone, the suitcase killer and the unhinged grandma, controlling and manipulative, unmoored from reality, shocked by their guilty verdicts, sentencing hearings on steroids. Prof Jo weighs in. Ciao a tutti. That's Italian for hi to all of you. I am Prof Jo, and this is Prof Jo Explains. And we're going to start with a slide of Donna Adelson and Sarah Boone. Actually, Donna Boone works pretty well because they kind of are one person in their behaviors and in the way they see the world, as are other I don't know, I'm not a psychologist, so I won't say narcissist, but very focused people, such as, again, Prince Harry, for example, or even maybe Blake Lively. If you follow any of that stuff as I do, there are a lot of parallels in the way they see the world and act. But I digress. Let's get back to this. Slide one of the two of them, and there it is. Donna Adelson and Sarah Boone, two murderers. Donna Adelson paid for her son-in-law to be murdered. Sarah Boone left her boyfriend to smother to death in a suitcase. Two women who would not be on my invitation list for Sunday dinner, and I certainly hope that anybody who's listening to this wouldn't invite them either. Donna had money. She and her husband lived in a luxury high-rise, along with A-Rod, Alex Rodriguez, the baseball great. They traveled extensively. They were in a very fancy, elite, gourmet dining club. Sarah Boone had a difficult childhood. She had trouble making ends meet. She had a failed marriage behind her. Her son was living with her ex. She was in a toxic relationship where they both, as far as anyone knows, were hitting each other. And she was an alcoholic who was not recovering. Both Sarah Boone and Donna Adelson are controlling and manipulative. Both need to be in charge. Donna Adelson, she didn't approve of the woman her older son wanted to marry. She was so much in his face that he broke off the engagement and married somebody else. Then within days, he saw his mistake, got a divorce, and married the woman he was really in love with. Donna Adelson went on a dating website with her daughter, Wendy, and actually picked out her husband for her, and that was Dan Markel. Sarah Boone, as I said, was in an abusive relationship, physically and emotionally. But she was the one calling the shots. It was her house. It was her car. Her psychologist said Sarah was the parent, and George Torres, her live-in significant other, was the child. Sarah Boone even limited the phone calls he had with his children. Their sentencing hearings underscored just how alike these two murderers are. Yeah, the hearings were different in style. Sarah was monotonal. Donna got emotional. Sarah is an absolute wizard with words. In another lifetime, she could have been a writer and a really fine writer. Donna was much more mundane, but in substance and approach and the way they saw the world and the way they wanted the world to see them, they were alike. Donna Adelson's sentencing hearing was an amazing demonstration of self-centered perspective and myopia. She attacked the judge. She attacked the jury. She proclaimed her innocence. She said she was the victim. Sarah Boone also attacked everyone. She said she was not responsible. Now, she couldn't say she didn't do it. She had to admit the act, but she said she wasn't responsible for the act. She was the victim. In a lifetime of watching trials, you might never see a hearing like either of these. And in a matter of months, we had 2 of them. So let me talk a little about what's supposed to happen at a sentencing hearing before we look at what actually happened in these 2 sentencing hearings. Sentencing obviously means the defendant was found guilty of the crime. You don't go to a sentence until there's been a conviction. Now, tenacity in life is often a good thing, to stick to it when times are tough, but you also need to know when to hold them and when to fold them. And sentencing is not the time to continue to proclaim innocence. You had the presumption of innocence at your trial. It went out when the jury verdict came in and found you guilty. It's not the time to relitigate the facts. That's what the trial was all about. It's not the time to say there wasn't enough evidence to convict you. You can say that on appeal, but sentencing isn't where you should be saying it. If you think the jury got it wrong, then you appeal. The judge cannot append the verdict at sentencing. In Florida, murder 1 brings a mandatory life sentence with no parole. You're in there forever. Nothing at a sentencing hearing can change that in terms of what the sentence will be because it's mandatory. So there's not much that can be said to the judge or nothing that can be said to the judge that will have an effect. But Donna was also convicted of conspiracy to commit murder and solicitation. Now there, the judge had some discretion on what the sentence should be. And there, Donna might have made an impact. And if the murder 1 conviction was overturned on appeal, then had she made an impact on the sentence for conspiracy, it would have made a difference in her life and how long she would serve. And that's what Donna should have focused on in the sentencing hearing. Now, we want to look at the sentencing factors, and there's a slide 2, which I listed factors in sentencing that you should be talking about at a sentencing hearing. The circumstances of the crime. Not all murders are the same. Not all robberies are the same. One murder, the killer shoots 1 bullet into the victim's head, and that's it. Another murder, the killer sticks the victim in a small box and sits and watches while he dies slowly of suffocation. Both murders, but not the same murder. Jean Valjean in Les Miserables, he stole a loaf of bread. It's what set the whole chain of affairs in Les Miserables going. He stole a loaf of bread. Why? Because his sister and her sister's children were starving. It was a theft. Another defendant comes from a wealthy family and he steals bread or some small items because he thinks it's a lark, because he wants to taunt the people he thinks are beneath them. Both are thefts, but not the same theft. So the circumstances of the crime can make a difference in the sentencing when the judge has a range from which to choose. The defendant's background and character make a difference. A defendant who's been abused, had parents who are alcoholics, is different in terms of background and in maybe the judge's inclination to be lenient than the defendant who comes from a stable home and had everything given to him. Someone who's been bullied, it's a first offense, is different from somebody who has a long record and who was the bully in his lifetime. Very young or very old defendants, that sometimes matters. Low cognitive ability matters. The victim's background and character also matter. Is the victim vulnerable, very young, very old? Conversely, was the victim a bully? Was the victim somebody picking unwanted fights? Those can matter in the sentencing, in the sentence that's given within that range. The defendant's motivation can matter. Donna Adelson murdered her former son-in-law because she wanted her grandchildren with her in Miami. Another victim, and this was Sarah Boone's claim, was that she was abused and she was afraid of the person that she killed. Victim defendant was afraid of the person, and that's why she killed him. Difference. The defendant takes responsibility for the crime. Now, responsibility was easy for Sarah because she couldn't deny having done the crime, so she could say, I did it. It's not going to affect anything. Tricky for Donna because Donna claimed innocence from day one until the sentencing hearing. And for all we know, she's going to continue to claim innocence until the day she dies. And for all we know, she may believe it. So Sarah could say, I'm really sorry it happened. Of course, I did it, but I'm sorry. If I could go back in time, I would have tried to find another way. And now I've learned from what happened. I found God, which is one of the things Sarah did say. Donna Adelson can regret the behavior. She can regret, the nasty emails that she sent about Dan. She can regret the nasty things she said about Dan. She can apologize for being a manic grandma, except I don't think she'd ever apologize because I don't think it's in her DNA. But those things can matter at sentencing. Both of them can express remorse. You can be sorry without having to say you're the one who's responsible. You can say, boy, he didn't deserve to die. I'm really sorry he was murdered, for his family, for his friends. You don't need to admit guilt. And both of them did do that, although Sarah had a somewhat odd way of getting there. At sentencing, there are also victim impact statements. Now, obviously, in a murder, it's not going to be the victim that's saying anything. It's going to be family members or friends, and victim impact statements are almost always murder prosecutions. They allow victims to get some relief. In the Kohlberger murder of the four college students, one of the victims consulted with a behavioralist to find out what she could say that would most make Kohlberger unhappy, angry, get to him. And then she sort of followed that script, and that was her purpose in that sentencing hearing. She didn't think he was ever going to feel guilty for the crime or remorseful for the crime, but she thought she could make him squirm that he didn't achieve what he expected to achieve with the crime. Victim impact statements were once pretty controversial because the argument was some victims come from stable families, that they have lots of friends, they're established in the community. They have lots of people who will come in and say, this was a wonderful person and made a real impact on my life, and I'm going to miss her terribly, et cetera, et cetera. Other victims don't have anybody to advocate for them. And so for a long time, it was felt to allow victim impact statements really gave an unfair advantage to some victims who were socially, set up better than others. But ultimately, all states allow them now. They've got different constraints on what you can do and how much you can do, because in large part, it really is cathartic for the victims to be able to get up there and say what's on their minds. The Markells gave their victim impact statements at the conviction, so they were not at the sentencing hearing. They live in Canada. The sentencing hearing was in Tallahassee, Florida, where Dan Markel was killed. They were there for the trial. So to have to come back 2 weeks later for the sentencing would have been quite an imposition. And so the judge allowed them to make their statements at the time of the conviction. And for anybody who saw that, you I'm sure will remember Phil Markel, Dan Markel's father, talking about the impact on him, and at the end saying to Donna, talking about all the impacts on all the kids that were affected and the family members that were affected, saying to Donna, was it worth it? And also saying to Donna, that in the Jewish tradition, you say, I hope somebody lives to, and I don't remember now, I think it might have been 120 years. And he said to her, and I hope you live that long in prison to think about what you've done and the havoc you've wreaked on so many lives. So at a sentencing hearing, then, the defendant can have witnesses up here to talk about, what the kind of person the defendant was, the impact the defendant has had, what a significant loss it will be if the defendant is behind bars for a long number of years. And they can also talk about, you might have a psychologist testify. This is what this defendant is like. At Sarah Boone's trial, she did have a prison psychologist testify. Defendant's witnesses are subject to cross-examination by the prosecutor. At Donna's trial, Georgia Kappelman declined to cross on any of the defendant witnesses, and that's usually the case. The prosecutor doesn't often ask questions of a defense witness. At Sarah's trial, the prosecutor did, but the witness was the psychologist, and the prosecutor wanted to explore a little how the psychologist reached the conclusions. So you can have questions from the prosecutor when it's the defendant's witnesses who are testifying at the hearing in favor of the defendant. The defendant also often gives a statement at the sentencing hearing, and at times the prosecutor will ask the defendant questions at the sentencing hearing. And then the prosecutor can make an argument for a particular sentence. Donna's prosecutor did not. Sarah Boone's prosecutor did. And that's about it. Then there are closings by the prosecutor and the defense. Again, at Donna's trial, Georgia Kappelman did not say anything in closing. That sort of sets this up, and I hope that was clear. You can follow me on Prof Jo Explains wherever you get broadcasts. If you subscribe, and please subscribe, you'll never miss one of these live episodes, and you can revisit past episodes. If you like, please hit like. If you've got questions about what I talked about, send me a question on the chat or at askprofjo@gmail.com. If you want to see ad-free episodes, and who wouldn't prefer ad-free, then look for me on Patreon, where we will have more content, all ad-free, all exclusive meet and greets, bonus deep dives, questions and answers, and much more. And finally, you can also post and keep up on Prof Jo Explains Facebook group. So if you've got questions, if you have comments, if you've got ideas for videos, any of that, you can reach me in a million places. A little bit of an exaggeration, but you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's go into the sentencing hearings now. We're going to have some clips that compare different pieces of each of the hearings to give you a better sense and flavor of what was going on. So the first clip that we're going to see is impact statements from Sarah Boone's trial, and it's coming from, I believe, her mother, Bianca.
Yes. Ma'am, good afternoon. Could you state and spell your name for the record for us?
She's the one on the right.
Okay. Ma'am, you can go ahead.
I just want to tell Sarah Boone that I don't hate her for what she did. And I always remember that evening when that lady came into my door and she knocked at the door. And she asked for my name. I said, I tell her my name. And then she said, "Can I come in?" I said, "Okay, yes." And she told me to sit down. I never think that was gonna be my son. And then she said my son was dead. Since that day, I can sleep. It's hard for me remember that moment. My son is not here no more. She don't only kill my son, she killed a father, a brother, an uncle. It's been hard on my family because all the brothers, they will always work together. But now it's like something real. Love is missing. Sometimes when I look out the window, I'm waiting for him to come and say, Mom, I love you. She was always there. She called and called me. I missed that moment. The last time that I talked to him was at 12 o'clock in January, New Year. He came to my bed and said, Mom. He woke me up and I said, Mom, I love you. Happy New Year. Since that day, I don't see him no more. He was my son. I love him. And I miss him a lot. My family miss him a lot too. But I don't hear her. But you know what? I was blessed. She ain't gonna be blessed like me because I have my son. I raised him. I have his children, my granddaughter, my grandson, and she don't gonna be able to have that. And I did. I raised him. He wasn't perfect, but he was a good son. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. State anything further from this witness?
No, Your Honor.
Defense?
No.
Thank you.
You can see cathartic clearly for the mother of the victim, emotional. She conveyed with words, but even more with emotion, the impact on her of the
Let me call
loss
your
of
next
her
written
child.
impact statement.
Victoria Torres.
Very effective impact statement from the victim's family. I think you all would agree. The next clip is the prison psychologist, a very different kind of statement, talking about Sarah Boone. And that would be clip 2.
Nature of her actions and conform with the requirements of law were substantially impaired, that she requires specialized treatment for a mental disorder that is not related to substance use or addiction, although you agree that she does suffer from alcohol use disorder.
So she has an underlying mental health disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and I additionally diagnosed her with alcohol use disorder, which is separate.
But you agree she does require specialized treatment for a mental disorder that's not related to the substance abuse or addiction?
That's correct.
And you agree she's amenable for treatment?
Yes.
And you would agree that she acted under extreme duress in this unique homicide case?
Yes.
And you would agree that the uniqueness of the circumstances, the facts and circumstances surrounding the case, that the offense was committed in an unsophisticated manner?
Yes.
And it was isolated?
That's my understanding as well.
Other than she had the charge where both of them were charged at one time, and I think she had the strangulation allegation, the felony case that was ultimately dismissed when both of them were arrested.
She had a prior felony case. The facts are different, of course, than this particular case where we're here today.
Dr. Harper, I believe that's all the questions I've got, unless you would like to say if I've missed anything, of course.
No, I can.
Okay, and if not, that's in the report.
Yes.
Any questions?
Yes. Will she take the stand so I can take the podium?
Yes, that's fine.
Different kind of impact statement, but on behalf of the defendant, and she's talking about the psychological detriments that Sarah Boone suffers under, and she talked a little about the the possibility of rehabilitation. She went on for a long time. I only wanted to give you a flavor of that, and also a sense that this one, the defense lawyer really wanted to control. It wasn't the type statement that a mother would give. It was really directed at the circumstances of the defendant and what should mitigate in trying to figure out what the right punishment was for her. And the defense lawyer wanted to be in charge of the questions that were asked in the same way that he would want to be in charge if the witness was on the stand. We didn't see any of the prosecution questions, but the prosecutor did get up and ask some questions of that witness. So those are two of the witnesses that appeared in Donna Boone's sentencing hearing, both doing what should be done at a sentencing hearing. Now we're going to turn over to Donna Adelson's sentencing hearing, and virtually every single one of her defense witnesses who testified live at the trial had no clue as to what they should be saying. They should have been, and appeared that they were not, interviewed by the defense lawyers to be sure that they were going to be on track and say the things that would be useful at a sentencing hearing. And I think it's pretty clear that they weren't talked to by the lawyers. Otherwise, they wouldn't have said some of the things we're going to hear. So the first witness we're going to hear from now is Richard Chagrin. He also testified at the trial. He was a friend of Donna and Harvey Adelson's. So let's listen to him.
Yes, Judge, we have Rick Chagrin, who's present, who would like to make a brief statement.
Please raise your right hand, sir. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give today will be the truth?
I do.
You can lower your hand. You may direct the witness or you may give a statement.
If you could state your full name, please.
My name is Richard Gordon Chagrin.
And have you prepared a statement here today?
Yes, I have.
Okay, you can give that to the court at this time.
This is on behalf of myself and my wife, Susan Brotman, an attorney at law. We have known Donna Adelson for over 35 years. She's been a dear friend and travel companion, and we are still in shock of her current circumstances. We know her to be a loving parent, wife, and grandparent. We stand behind her claim of innocence. We feel the trial was held in a county where there's been a lot of bad and inaccurate negative publicity, therefore not allowing a fair trial. We contend if a change of venue was granted, she would have been found not guilty. We are hopeful she will be relocated to South Florida, where she can pursue all legal remedies available. Thank you very much for your consideration.
These are character statements or quibbling about the evidence and the rulings?
It's character, Judge. They're here to talk about their friendship and time. Thank you.
Any witness examination for Mr. Chagrin?
Okay. Everything's very short and very wrong. She's innocent. And note, he's talking to the judge who decided there was no need to move the trial, that Donna Adelson could get a fair trial in Tallahassee, Florida. And he's telling the judge clearly, you were wrong. She was railroaded. Not the right thing to say at sentencing, not the right thing to say in front of somebody that you want to persuade to be lenient in the sentence that's given. So that's Richard Chagrin. Now we're going to listen from Harvey, who, if anything, was worse. This is Donna Adelson's husband, and this is clip 4.
Defense 1 for sentencing.
Thank you, Judge.
Dr. Adelson, please raise your right hand, sir. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes, I do.
You can lower your hand. You may speak.
Thank you, Judge, and respected officers of the court for allowing me to speak. I have been Donna Adelson's husband for over 50 years. My wife sacrificed everything so that she could pour her heart and soul into our children, our grandchildren, and our marriage. This summer was our 54th wedding anniversary, and I had to spend it without her, hand in mine. She has done nothing wrong, and yet is being punished for a crime that she did not commit. I thought we lived in a different kind of world, but I guess I was wrong. I have listened, watched, and sat in the courtroom for the entire trial, and I could not help but scream in my mind by the witnesses that were brought forward by the prosecution who told outright lies. I didn't know that you could lie in a courtroom, but apparently you can. Danny's parents contend that they have never seen their grandchild. But for years they say they've never seen her. But Wendy has shared with me pictures and videos and letters from their visits. They have suffered immensely at the loss of their son, but they also contend to tell lies to the court about our grandchildren. Donna has always been a loving and caring wife and is innocent of the charges. A biased judge and jury were influenced by years of one-sided news pieces and social media.
Doctor, Ms. Fulford, this has nothing to do with the character of the defendant or at least the sentencing.
May I just 1 moment, please?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Something she should have done before he got up there and not after he got up there. And notice he was worse. He made clear that the judge was biased, talking to the judge that he says was biased, talking to the judge at sentencing who had actually exercised discretion to, on the 2 other charges, not murder 1, to move that sentence down some, not calculated to get it done. And then even worse than that, he goes after the parents of the victim and says that they lied. Well, in the first place, what he says they said does not comport with what they said. I'm not going to go into that. A lot of you know about it. And it's not really, it's not worth the digression to do it. Just believe me, what he says they said, they didn't say. But even had they said it at sentencing. They didn't say it during the trial, so it couldn't have had any effect on the jury coming back with a guilty verdict. So a bad, bad, bad exercise of what should happen at a sentencing hearing. So the next clip is from Ron Ellis, and he was not there. He provided his statement by letter. You can write a letter and it will be read into the record at a sentencing hearing for either side, for the defendant or for the victim. And in fact, and sometimes you can do it over Zoom, and they actually had somebody who was really bad, but I couldn't find, I couldn't find a clip that was, it was all so bad it was hard to pick what to pick, so I didn't use him. But let's hear part of the sentencing letter that's being read, I believe, by Jackie Fulford, one of the defense lawyers.
We also submitted a letter from Ron Ellis to the court. My name is Ron Ellis, and I have had the privilege of knowing Donna Adelson for more than 30 years. I am writing to you in hope of offering some perspective on the woman I have come to know so well over the course of our long friendship. Donna has been a steady and caring presence in my life. When my stepson passed away 11 years ago at the age of 34, Donna was there for me in ways I will never forget. She sat with me in my grief, listened when I needed to talk, and offered comfort when I felt overwhelmed. That kindness and empathy is the Donna I know. Someone who shows up for her friends and offers strength in their darkest moments. Over the years, I have seen Donna's compassion extend beyond just me. She has been a devoted mother, a loyal friend, and someone who consistently tried to bring warmth and generosity to those around her. I understand fully the gravity of the situation before the court, but I hope that when you consider Donna's sentence, you will also weigh the years of kindness, care, and humanity she has shown to others. I believe that Donna still has the ability to contribute positively, even under these circumstances, and that she is capable of reflection and growth. I respectfully ask that you take these qualities into account when you make your decision. Thank you for your time and consideration. Respectfully, Ron Ellis.
And that was a near perfect victim's statement. He hit all the right boxes, and he didn't venture into the territory that Harvey and Richard Chagrin felt very happy to move into. Now we're going to hear parts of the actual statements from Donna and from Sarah Boone. Both not well calculated, as I've said before. Sarah Boone's in particular, if you have the chance to listen to the entire statement, was a remarkable exercise of saying, I forgive, I forgive, I forgive. And in the context of I forgive, attacking everybody and everything under the sun. I mean, it was really, as a literary exercise, it would have gotten an A+. As a statement in sentencing, it wasn't anywhere near an A+. Donna did not testify under oath. In Judge Everett's court, he typically required those who testify at sentencing to do it under oath. Donna did not. And I will give you my opinion here, and I guess it's a little maybe cruel, but I thought it was pretty cowardly. She didn't get on the stand because she did not want to be subject to cross-examination. She didn't want to be under oath at the sentencing hearing, presumably for the same reason, and also maybe to avoid a perjury prosecution. Not that anybody would do it with the conviction she had. So it seemed a little silly to do it, but the only guess anybody had watching was she just didn't want to be cross-examined. It can be used if by some, remarkable series of events that I do not foresee, Donna's conviction were overturned on appeal. Then anything she said at the sentencing hearing can be used to impeach her. You don't have to be under oath for the prosecutor to say, were she to get on the stand, well, you said this at sentencing, now you're saying this. When were you lying? So in any event, let's hear Sarah Boone first. And this is clip 6.
Into Sukaroy. In my wisdom and with all of my repairs, then, now, and ongoing, God is, has been, and will always be my artisan. All of my gold is forgiveness. This has held me together, made me shine brighter, and overcome the damage caused by George Torres, the Torres family, the justice system, Orange County Corrections Department, social media, scoundrel detectives, infamy, defamation, ongoing constitutional rights violations, second-degree murder, forced into being pro se. Just as gold is very precious, forgiveness is invaluable. Forgiveness is not an attempt to change or forget who, what, or how you've lived through to be so gold, but an act of grace, humility, and considerable self-compassion to be set free from sorrow. Withholding forgiveness denies your brilliance and adds even greater grief and deeper heartache, irreparable cracks on top of the already that no one deserves, no matter the pain or disappointment, untruths or injustice. It doesn't matter, as the more broken you are, even though now different than before, you've become more outstanding and more extraordinary.
So that's part of Sarah Boone. And we're going to get a little more sense of her because I have at least another clip of her. Donna didn't attack anyone in her statement at sentencing. She let her witnesses do it for her. So now let's listen to clip 7. Both Sarah Boone and Donna talked about the murder victims. And this is Sarah Boone first.
My gold begins with George Torres, and every time he slapped me, kicked, punched, spit on, raped, stabbed, choked, laughed at, pushed, pulled, dragged, whipped, tripped, stole from, lied, terrorized, threatened, humiliated, forced, degraded, made me cry. Every time he tried to end me, defeat, or destroy. I forgive George for beating me senseless, for trying to sleep because I had to go to work or my son's field trip the next day, for ruining my deceased family's heirlooms, traditions, and keepsakes, my son's furniture, destroying the television we watched together, for wrecking our townhome by breaking windows, punching holes in the walls and doors, ramming his entire body into glass doors, kicking in my front and back door over and over and over, for breaking or removing the locks from all of the doors and sometimes the knobs altogether, so I had nowhere to feel safe, including the sacred space of my son's room where he beat me bloody on his bed. For terrorizing and threatening my blind and deaf dogs by leaving the gate open I built to keep them safe, telling me he hoped I'd find their bloated dead body in the pond or scrape their remains off of the pavement, for kicking them off of the bed and throwing across the room because they were trying to protect me, for threatening to make me unrecognizable to my son by breaking all of the bones in my face, like his brother Moses did to him after he kept seeing all of the bruises from George beating me, like all the times their father beat their mother, for all of the drunken rages and fist fights with so many neighbors when wandering into their apartments during hunting expeditions after I had escaped, for drowning me in liquor and wine because I didn't want to drink, causing me to urinate on myself, then butting the end of the bottle in my face, giving me 2 black eyes and a bloody nose, for making me experience what it is to be sodomized, threatening to kill my friends and the neighbors when they checked on me to make sure I was alive and in one piece, for threatening to burn down our townhome and set my car on fire because I got a job, for holding me hostage on weekends my son was supposed to come over by keeping my keys around his neck, my phone in his crotch, and a butcher knife stuck in the middle of the table as a warning not to ask anything or try to leave, for stabbing me in the leg and not letting me call 911 for an ambulance or seek help, where I nearly bled to death until I concocted a lie to save him from being arrested, for destroying my phone with a hammer because my son called, for me experiencing ever being arrested and after today, prison, for beating me almost blind, crushing my occipital lobe, for having me experience what it means to see stars like in the cartoons, where a character has a tall lump on their head. I had that too, and many times, for dragging me downstairs by my hair in the middle of the night just to sit next to him, for taking my car driving drunk with my debit card to buy more alcohol while I slept, even after I kindly explained the importance of my car to take my son to school foremost, me to work, and he to his batterers intervention classes and probation officer meetings, where I would be forced to sit for hours in the parking lot waiting for him, for causing me so much trauma and pain mentally, physically, emotionally. I had to be hospitalized more than once, for destroying my reputation and integrity, for my M for murderer scarlet letter, not letting me feel safe to live, talk to other people, spend time with my son, have a job, friendships, simply go to the bathroom with the door closed, or go to sleep soundly or comfortably. I forgive George for lying, for him trying in so many ways, so many times, to end me with his terrifying love. I also forgive the Torres family, his mother and
So as I said, that's Donna forgiving by going through a litany of things that her victim did that were evil and painful. We don't know how many of those are true. Some of them are, because there were hospital visits by each of them, actually. But again, not really what should have been the focus of the sentencing hearing for her. In large part because that defense, I was battered, I was a battered partner, and that's what led to the letting him smother in a suitcase. That defense doesn't work when you have several hours to rethink and unzip the suitcase and let him out, which were the facts in this case. So in that respect, she was also relitigating the finding of the jury. So let's go on to hear Donna praise Dan Markel. And I will say ahead of time, particularly for those of you who know this case, that what she says about loving Dan Markel flies right in the face of a lot of the evidence at trial and a lot of the things that we know from emails and other things that didn't get into trial about how she despised him and all the names she called him and, doing the manic things to try to get him out of her daughter's life. So this rings hollow. And remember, she's saying this to the judge who presided over the trial, who heard all that other evidence. But this is Donna talking about her victim.
He was being hunted. He was brutally murdered in broad daylight, sitting in his car, in his garage, by vicious killers. I cannot imagine the terror he felt when he saw a gun pointed at him through the window of his car. I cannot conceive of his heroic efforts to stay alive during the hours after the attack. Danny died in the early morning hours of July 19th. His death is a loss to his children, his parents, his sister, all of us in his family, his friends, his colleagues in the legal community, and to his students at FSU Law School. Danny's boys each have a photo of themselves with their Abba, their dad, beside their beds. They grew up kissing the framed photo and saying, "Good night, Abba, I love you." The pictures and memories are all they have because cruel, cold-hearted people took him from all of us who loved him. My heart was broken when Danny died. My grandsons were going to grow up without the father who loved them. I wondered, how could we help these boys through this trauma? It was then that my husband and I knew that the best way to honor Danny's memory would be to share with these children an abundance of love, the love that Danny would have given them if he were alive.
So that's Donna, and that's called chutzpah. She was complicit in whisking the boys out of Tallahassee and to Miami within 2-3 days after Dan Markel was murdered. A year later, when her daughter Wendy came to her and said that the older boy was having trouble coming to grips with his dad's death, this Donna, who says at the sentencing hearing, you know, that children should not have their father and a loving father ripped out of their lives, this Donna, talking to Wendy, said children don't remember those sorts of things. He's just sort of exaggerating. I've looked at him. He's with me a lot. He doesn't seem to be the least bit disturbed. And that, I think, is the real Donna, not the one who showed up here. And again, the judge she's saying this to sat through the trial and heard the evidence. So the praising the victim is not a bad idea in sentencing, or at least saying nice things, but you've got to kind of hold towards the truth line and not go sort of swimming out into the middle of the ocean and expect people not to remember the evidence that showed something very different. So let's now listen to Sarah Boone talk about how her act was not intentional. Now, for those of you who know or saw some of Sarah Boone's trial, she zipped George Torres into a suitcase. He kept pushing and kicking to get out, and he couldn't. He kept telling her that he couldn't breathe, and she went up to bed. This is Sarah Boone. Clip 9.
It's every day especially. It truly reminds me that all I really did live through. George haunts me. He is everywhere. I believe because I do still love him, think of him, and miss his laugh the most. In my heart, I know he is with me and understands that this tragedy was not intentional. I hope everyone can, his family foremost. I didn't mean for this to happen. Please wholeheartedly know that, and always, I would never. Forgive me, George. Forgive me, Torres family. Forgive me, Judge Cranick. To the entire planet, please forgive me. I graciously and humbly ask for consideration, for forgiveness to be extended instead of judgment, for reconciliation and restoration for all of us to move forward. My apology is profuse and ceaseless. Allow me, please, to brush off the muck, wipe the blood off of my face, and fix the cuts in my skin. I ask for understanding in what really happened and for how long, for second chances, repentance, and redemption to advocate for all domestic violence survivors, to help them overcome, heal, and still hope, always, to make their voices heard, to confidently walk with all of their scars on the outside and the inside, to help them not ever become a casualty of domestic violence as so many others, to stop the abuse and maltreatment before it's too late. There is always hope, and you can survive. In my soft-spoken conclusion, I ask this: Would I be the darling mother, celebrated woman of the year, if it were I who died? How many daughters, mothers, sisters, aunts, grandmothers, nieces, and friends have been because they did? I am a survivor. Learn to do good.
And that's Sarah Boone again. Not intentional. This time she's asking for forgiveness of all the people earlier that she went through that litany of all the bad things they did. So hers is a little a bumpy ride, as maybe Betty Davis would say, in terms of what she says when. But I think you're getting a good flavor of what that hearing was like. Let's go on to Donna Adelson now. Not admitting guilt. It's clip 10.
It is interesting how the state can't make up its mind about who is what they call the, quote, mastermind behind this murder. In both of Catherine Magbanaw's trials, the state claimed she was the mastermind behind Danny's murder. In my son Charlie Adelson's trial, they claimed he was the mastermind. And now in my trial, they claimed that I, this grandma, was the mastermind behind the murder. I had no idea that other people planned to cut Danny's life short. And the people who did this are exactly where they deserve to be. But I had no knowledge that this horrible, evil act was going to take place. If I had become aware of this plan before Danny was murdered, I would have stopped it. With not one iota of actual evidence, the state convinced a Tallahassee jury that I solicited and conspired with other people to have Danny killed. Where is the evidence prior to the murder? The evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that the state needed to prove their case. Where is the evidence before July 18th, 2014 at 10:50 in the morning?
Before you continue, Mrs. Adelson, as it relates to this statement, is the defense trying to re-argue the trial?
No, Judge, just giving Mrs. Adelson an opportunity to be heard.
Mrs. Adelson, you certainly can continue. However, the court can take into consideration the utter lack of remorse that you are displaying. Please proceed if you desire to do so.
Where is the evidence before July 18th, 2014 at 10:50 a.m. that revealed that I had any involvement in this vile and horrific act? Where is the solicitation and conspiracy evidence? The state needed to show that there was evidence before the murder to convict me. The state couldn't show that because there wasn't any evidence. They were trying an innocent person. It makes you wonder if the jurors were sleeping when the state had Sergeant Corbett on the stand for hours. Their own star witness testified that my phone was never, I repeat, never at my son's house on the night of the murder. The state's theory that my husband and I dropped off money to my son was blown out of the water by their own witness. And yet, the state continued to push that story, that lie of the so-called money drop to the jury through the remainder of the trial. And the jury bought into it, hook, line, and sinker. Reasonable doubt. Many months ago, my attorneys filed a motion for a change of venue. An expert witness testified that Tallahassee had been barraged with over 9 years of negative social media, printed news, television news, and podcast publicity about my family. He explained to the court, both with evidence and demonstratives, that for me to receive a fair trial, it needed to be held in any of the researched and designated areas in the state of Florida other than Tallahassee. All I wanted was a level playing field, but the court wanted the trial here in the hotbed of Tallahassee. I sat through 3 days of jury selection. 180 potential jurors were asked if they had developed an opinion in my case. Those that answered yes also added, "I believe she is guilty." Not one person, not one, said, "I think she may be innocent." That should have been a clue to the court to grant our motion for a change of venue, but the court denied the motion. One of my jurors admitted during jury selection that she had background information concerning what one of the state's witnesses would be testifying about. Why was she allowed to be on my jury?
What moment?
Another juror.
Mrs. Fulford,
Oh, I didn't hear you.
Mr. Zellman, again, this has nothing to do with elocution of any sort. This is a raising of grievances, which are properly given to the appellate court. What does any of this have to do with sentencing?
Could I have just one moment, please?
So that was Donna Adelson trying again, maybe, to what? Persuade the judge? No. I do think, and I said this when I was watching and commenting on that sentencing hearing, that assuming that Donna Adelson is rational, and assuming she's got a clear-eyed view of what the evidence was and her complicity in it, which may be a big assumption here, but assuming that, the only reasonable explanation for what she's doing is that her audience here is not the judge. It's not the claim that she was railroaded, not to the judge, but her audience is the two grandsons that she was so instrumental in getting to Miami, but by having their father killed. And they're the ones that she wants to reach. And that whole recitation is her telling them there's nothing in the evidence. And I guess keeping her fingers crossed that they'll never go listen to the trial or look at the evidence on their own. She misstated what investigator Corbett said. And her complaint about how did that juror who had prior knowledge ever get to sit on the jury? Number one, I think she overstates what that juror said. Number two, her lawyers could have struck that juror from sitting on the jury if they thought that juror was a problem. So that argument should be addressed to the lawyer she's paying for, not to the judge, not to Tallahassee, not to the jurors that actually sat. So now you got my little commercial there about it. And then finally, let's hear from Sarah Boone again, while she continues on her literary escapade in trying to describe her lack of responsibility. And this is clip 11.
No? Yes, please. My statement, my verbal statement is primarily to the Torres family, to the judge, to his daughters. I know you all know who I really am and that I did care for George and that I do still love George. I know you know that we had very many good days. And I take offense to the statement of being said that this is just for a moment. Right now with me here in the courtroom in front of you all, this is just for a moment. But the moments before that, in order for me to be here, is endless. It's everlasting. The scars that I have on the inside, my outside scars have healed except for my stab wound. But this has changed me as a person to see things differently and to understand things differently and to not be weak and just try to protect yourself and forever, regardless of the time that I may receive from today, I forever will have this experience. I forever will have George Torres with me in my heart, in my mind, my body, and my soul. As he and I used to say that we were one soul split into two bodies. This is not just for a moment. It may be for everyone in this courtroom, but when I leave, this is forever. When you all leave, that this is forever. This is forever for everyone here and those who it matters to most. I am one of those who will experience this forever. I'm sorry. Words do not define my shame, and I don't know what else it is that I can say and convey to the Torres family how this happened. The ifs and whys and how really don't matter. It happened, and I'm sorry. Words cannot describe. And I hope that everyone can forgive me, the Torres family most of all, and his daughters, because I know what he meant to them. And I don't think that anybody ever understood what he meant to me and I to him. And I ask for forgiveness.
And there's Donna Boone again. Now, she asks for forgiveness. Whether you believe it or not may be a different story, but at least she now asks for it without all the other, this person did this to me and this person did that to me. But I'm such a big person, I can rise above it all and ask for forgiveness. Donna Adelson, however, makes no equivalent statement whatsoever. She didn't say that she's become a changed person, because I'm sure in her mind she was already a good, caring person. There was no, upward level here. She was already there. She could have repented her behavior to Dan. She never admitted that she had any bad behavior toward Dan. And all she kept singing was the refrain that she was innocent, 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 has nothing to be sorry for, has nothing to express remorse about. That was Donna. We're going to end with a little more from Sarah, and then we will be done. I think there's one more clip, and it would be 12.
Ms. Boone, I have just one or two questions, if you don't mind.
And this is a defense lawyer
You
asking.
can speak on it if you want or not. But this is a unique case, and one of the reasons it's so unique is that you were in jail for 4.5 years prior to your trial. And I understand that when you were brought up as a child that you did have some spirituality in your family, some church, some religion.
Always.
But I understand that you got away from that. Did you have a chance during the 4.5 years to look back at your spirituality?
Absolutely. Everyone supposes that this is one of the worst experiences of my life, and it's actually been one of my greatest. If I were not beaten to death, I was going to work myself to death on the outside, and I never had time to get back into my Bible and to pray and to be with the Lord. And I, being here incarcerated, have had time, of course, to get closer to God, to reacquaint myself to Him and realize what it's all about. This is all temporary. And when I say temporary, I don't mean by being set free in jail or from prison or wherever else. It means being set free and temporary, meaning that you work for something higher, you work for God, that you strive for your crown to be placed upon your head by Jesus Christ by being said, "You have done well, my good and faithful servant." I've always tried to be a good and faithful servant. I was just a servant as opposed to doing all that I can when my family were alive and I was going through everything up to this point. I've become so much more closer to the Lord, and it's made me such a better person, and I hope that I am an example going forward of the Lord's light and can draw many people to me because of it.
Thank you.
Follow-up, State.
So that was an example of the defense lawyer asking some questions. What he asked and the way he asked it would never have been allowed at trial because he made a little speech, but this is sentencing. The rules of evidence don't apply, or they don't apply very strictly. And obviously he was trying to convey to the judge and then let Sarah Boone try that she's a reformed person, that she takes responsibility, that she's trying to be a better person, and that as she said, she thinks she can be, she didn't say leader, I'm going to say leader for others. So that particular last statement by her was certainly not like the others. And if she had only said something like that, her sentencing hearing and her presentation at it would have been much better. Now, sentencing hearings, as I said, also can involve, if the defense, and almost always the defense does it, and the prosecutor often doesn't, can make closing statements about what they think the sentence should be and what occurred. Sarah Boone's lawyers were very good at this. And for those of you who don't know the background here, I think she went through 8, 10, 12, I don't remember the number of lawyers and since they were being appointed by the state, at one point the judge said, enough is enough. I'm going to treat your treatment of these lawyers and the fact that you can't get along and you're constantly want a new lawyer, I'm going to treat it as your request to go pro se. That got Sarah Boone's attention. She did not want to be her own defense lawyer at trial. She posted, I don't know whether it was on Facebook, but she sent something out, an ad asking for a lawyer to come defend her. And the ad itself was pretty amusing, her description of what she needed. But in any event, a lawyer came forward and took on the case. And he did a respectable job. And what he did in closing was really very good. He knew what the points were that were needed in order to attempt to persuade the judge. He pointed specifically to the factors aligning with the statutory criteria for a downward departure from the maximum sentence. He cited trial testimony, and he cited with particular reference to trial testimony. He really did, as I say, a very, very good job, and it's a good illustration of how a good sentencing hearing can be conveyed. I actually thought a little about doing an episode just focusing on what he did and maybe looking at a couple of others. And I wasn't sure there'd be enough interest. If there is interest, and you let me know on askprofjo@gmail.com or in the comments here or on Facebook. And if enough people are interested, then I'll try to put something together. But he did do a good job. So let me say a couple of other things about these hearings. Or recap a little, I guess would be a better way to put it. These sentencing hearings were unique. You can go an entire career in law and never see anything like it. Sarah Boone's witnesses were very good. They said the right thing. She couched her statement as I forgive, but it was really anything but an I forgive. It was more, you did this to me, you did this to me, you did this to me. And that undercut, I think, any chance she had with the judge to get a downward departure. She couldn't deny doing the act, but she could have done better. She didn't have to attack people. She could not help herself. Donna's witnesses, at least the ones in court, by contrast, were terrible, and she chimed in. That couldn't have made a difference for murder one for her, because that was that mandatory life without parole. But if that's ever overturned, and as I say, I think that's not very likely, but were it ever to be overturned, then the sentence she got for conspiracy mattered a lot, and she didn't help herself at sentencing to persuade the judge to give her a lower sentence at sentencing. But as I said, I think she was talking to her grandsons, and that's what she was up to. So you have two defendants, very different backgrounds. but in my view, at least, did a lot of the same things at their sentencing that reflected their focus on themselves and not others, reflected their sort of inability to look at the world realistically, that focused on their extreme I in their lives, their controlling natures. And I found it extraordinary how close in those behaviors they were. Although the style, and I think you can see that from the clips, the style was very different. I want to thank Court TV. I think you could see on some of those clips that Court TV permitted me to use the clips here to illustrate some points, because I think they make it so much more clear than anyone can do by just reciting what happened. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to see it again, it's going to be at the tape of it will be on YouTube at Prof Jo Explains. And again, if you have any questions, you know where to send them at askprofjo@gmail.com. And I hope you enjoyed the show. And if so, it would be great if you would subscribe. I could beg, please subscribe. And this is Prof Jo at Prof Jo Explains, and ciao.